Can you talk about, how it just kind of pushes Airbyte beyond just retrieving data into actually now you're not just looking at it as not just one-way traffic, you're actually also taking actions like writing back to very sophisticated system like Salesforce. How does that bidirectional access change the way enterprise AI agents are architected, and what new governance challenges come with it? Because if you do allow your agents to start taking actions, to start writing to your sophisticated system, you need to have right governance as well. So it is not as that simple. So can you talk about the working of the CLI?
I think the CLI is one component, but where we allow developers to just interact with our platform directly from the terminal. But I think what we're talking about here is more like us enabling agent to write back to systems. If we look back at the last 5 years, this has already happened, like when it comes to, just pure data. So I'll back up a bit, but essentially we also have this feature, but there are a lot of companies a bunch of companies that have developed this feature before, which is called what we call reverse ETL or data activation. And what that means is that, before AI, you could have a DBT model that runs every day and says like, hey, who were my top spenders yesterday. And of course, what you want to do is have a system that every morning writes that back into Salesforce so that the sales team can look at, who were the biggest spenders and try to upsell them or trying to lock them into a contract as an example. And so this reverse ETL actually transforming data and writing it back to systems is not something that is just out today. It's something that companies have been doing for a while. I think the issue is that when you go from a data team writing very deterministic code that is going to run every day and just update, stuff in a CRM or in whatever system, when you go from that to an agent writing back to a system, first of all, you need to make sure that the agent is not hallucinating and that the agent is writing the right data to the right system. And second, you go from a few people within an organization, even if it's a large organization, you can team of, even a company of 10,000 people is going to have maybe 50 people, 100 people in the data team if it's already very data mature. When you go from like 50 people to suddenly everybody's agent having access to writing back to systems, how do you know that a specific person is even allowed to write back to the record? Or how do you know that a specific person has access to the information he needs for the agent to take action? And so from a governance endpoint, like it requires way more robust, governance and so on and so forth. But you also need way better data lineage because you need to be able to understand like why did an agent take an action? You need traceability. You need to understand, yes, this is a non-deterministic, flow where an agent is reasoning and taking action, but you always need to be able to trace that back into, okay, but why did the agent actually make that decision? Why did the agent wrote that data? Who initiated that agent? Was it on a schedule? Was it automatic? And so on and so forth. So I think you're going from a few people in an organization owning and governing access to data to suddenly everybody being able to work on data. And so the scale at which that happens is just massive, and so it introduces a lot of challenges. So
it's available on Open AI Marketplace. What about other like cloud and Tropic Cloud? Is there other
yeah, we're
places
working
as
with
well?
all
What
of
is your long-term
yeah,
plan?
we're working with them. It's a process. Like every company, OpenAI was quicker in this case, but it's a process, and we're working with all of the frontier labs, to have these resources like officially on their marketplaces. You can still go ahead and install like an MCP into Claude. It's just pasting a link. Of course, it's nice to be in the marketplace so that people can find it quicker, and their team is also like, doing some work on it. But we do work with all the other providers.